Remember this.
So the answer to the question is no. So the government hasn't undertaken any impact assessments on the implications of leaving the EU for different sectors of the British economy.
Well, it now appears, according to the government's own figures, the impact of Brexit and Boris Johnson's
great deal
will actually be twice as damaging to the economy as a deadly pandemic. Here is the chairman of the Office for Budget Responsibility, Richard Hughes.
Since the referendum, we've assumed in our forecast that leaving the European Union is going to reduce our long-run potential output by about 4%. And in our most recent forecast, as I mentioned, we think that the effect of the pandemic is going to reduce that potential output by a further 2%. And so far, the data that we've seen on the impact of Brexit, especially taking into account the fact that the new trading arrangements came in January, is broadly consistent with that assumption that we had, which is that it would reduce our long-run GDP by around 4%.
So still, after all this, Brexit is going to have a bigger impact than the pandemic on the long term?
Yeah, in the long term, it is the case that Brexit has a bigger impact than the pandemic over the long term.
GDP, or gross domestic product, is one of the most important ways of showing how well or how badly an economy is doing. It's a measure, or an attempt to measure, all the activity of companies, governments and individuals in an economy. It now appears the long-term impact on the economy of Brexit and the Prime Ministers,
a great prospect and a great deal,
will be double that of COVID. The difference, of course, being the pandemic was an entirely unforeseen global catastrophe, whereas Brexit is entirely self-inflicted. Here is more from Paul Johnson, the director of the Institute of Fiscal Studies.
Voters may not get much feel-good factor. High inflation, rising taxes, poor growth, still undermined more by Brexit than by the pandemic, will see real living standards barely rising and for many falling over the next year.